We want to thank you, listeners, for all your support, your ongoing efforts to become a brand ambassador for Imagine Fitting In. There's a number of ways that you can support our efforts here. Number one is share it on your social media link. Share the episode, please. And be sure to hit the link, hit the button, subscribe button on YouTube. And we are also available on Apple and Spotify. And number two, you can please consider making any donation that you feel comfortable with. It's always appreciated to advance our efforts here and even increase the level of production and bring you more and more great guests from here in Dayton, across the country, and even around the world. So thank you again for those who have donated to date, and you can find the link in our show notes. And then finally, number three, I love the idea of guest referrals. So if you know anyone who has a great story, would like to share their efforts in the community, about their work, their contributions, their efforts, from all mediums. We love a good story. Mentors playing a huge role in all of our lives. And here at Imagine Fitting In, we're trying to highlight the importance of mentors and encourage more of the same to our young people in this community and potentially, extended area. And please consider that. We'd love to hear from you. Again, the show notes, you can reach me at thebalanceprofessor@gmail.com, and we hope to hear from you. So again, we hope you enjoyed this episode. It's always a blast. I feel it's a pleasure and an honor and privilege to be doing what I'm doing. So I look forward to hearing from you. And again, please enjoy, share, subscribe, donate, and become a brand ambassador, and even just refer a guest. So thanks again. You take care. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
I would write these tales, these stories, these fictionalized, take my little bit and dramatize them.
Sure.
And finally, she sat me down one day. She goes, your real life is so much more interesting than what you're creating on this paper. And I love what you're attempting to do, but talk about you and talk about what's in your heart.
And we're live today on Imagine Fitting In with, you prefer Josh or Joshua?
Josh.
Josh Stucky.
Yes, that's right.
Welcome, Josh.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Gosh, it's very nice to have you.
Thank you.
I came to kind of connect with you. I'd seen you guys are, that you were, in fact, you were in Dayton.
Yes.
And one of my clients, shout out to David and Kathy.
Yep.
And they said, oh, yeah, we know Josh. You have to. It's great.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's a nice connection.
It is.
So again, welcome.
Thank you.
So, normally I go into some questions about, other questions deeper into your past and stuff. But you know what, Josh, give us the listeners just a summary about, your life and like what you do here. I know you're very super dynamic.
Sure. Well, I'm from South Charleston, which is about maybe 13 miles away, in between Columbus and Dayton, almost the middle. So I was very lucky to grow up in a farm community where there were cities on both, like bookends on both sides. My father was a professor at Wittenberg University.
Nice.
My mother was a librarian of sorts.
What was his field?
Civics. He was in government.
God bless, right?
Right.
We use that.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And so I grew up in a really cool little spot, small community where big fish, little pond kind of thing. And I found my voice pretty early. Kind of was interested in philanthropy as a kid. Saw a lot of issues that were going on in society, and I thought, how do we help people? And I realized, really, whether we want to admit it or not, the biggest help we can give is finding people to monetarily, supplement those programs and things that are in our culture.
Right, the important ones that
really
have the
can
real
help.
need.
So I saw this kind of going on. Both of my parents are like public servants, so I could see how that was going. Library, someone who's in the schools,
right? Yeah, just vibe ingrained in you from the start. That's beautiful.
Totally ingrained.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I went to Wright State University, and from there I got my degree in education and became a teacher. Taught in Kettering for 27 years.
Whoa.
I became a Hall of Fame teacher for Kettering, which is not that I'm bragging about it, but it's a big deal when you can, be someone who is a little bit outside of the norm.
Sure.
And leave your mark on that.
We call that outstanding, my friend.
That's right.
So kudos, man.
Yes,
kudos.
yes. So kind of came from that background. And, I early on was like, how can you make a difference in your community in an unusual way? And lived on Rubicon Street, right in downtown Dayton, right by Miami Valley Hospital.
Okay.
And with a group of guys, all of us just happened to be gay. And we decided to start doing these shows in our home. And by doing these shows, people were coming from all over the place, especially UD, to watch these crazy shows. And we became the Rubi Girls. And the Rubi Girls just expanded into this huge charitable organization.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there any story about how you picked the Rubi Girls?
We got it from Rubicon Street. So
Oh.
we were on Rubicon Street, and
How appropriate.
It's RUBI. If you look us up, it's
Yes.
RUBI, not RUBY, for the Rubicon Street. It's all right. And Rubi Girls got started, and there were 4 of us that kind of started this path or trajectory or whatever you want to
Yes.
call it. And so it just celebrated 40 years in November.
Yeah.
We've been able to raise $3 million for HIV, gay-related charities.
Oh, my gosh, that's
and now we've
amazing.
expanded into, we pretty much will raise money for anybody in the Dayton area. And, like I said, we just celebrated 40 years, had a big 40-year celebration at the arcade in downtown Dayton.
Sweet.
And it's just huge. I mean, it's
Yes.
absolutely huge what's gone on, and just keeps growing. And philanthropically, it's done very well. We
you,
now
man.
kind of, we house money through the Dayton Foundation so that it's, well taken care of and can live in perpetuity when we're gone. I mean,
Nice.
we're not spring chickens anymore. We're all in our 60s.
Yes,
So we got to
I hear
figure
you.
out, how does this carry on? So, I mean, that's a brief summation of
Yes,
how
yes.
things have gone.
And
but-
so 2 things.
yes.
I'd love to do the shout out to your other founders.
Yes.
Who are the names of the guys?
So Gilbert Gonzalez, who lives in Columbus, Ohio now. Fred Hairston, who's really the original Rubi Girl, only because he was at an Oregon District Boo and Brew in 1984.
Yeah.
The big party, the big Halloween party down there.
Okay.
He went as Jolene the cowgirl and was just being stupid. And people were just surrounding him as he's putting on his little show.
Sure.
Right. Before there was a RuPaul and any of those things.
Right.
And put on this little show. And he was one of our roommates. And the 4 of us were just kind of like, okay, we see we can gain attention in this way.
Right.
Make
And
people laugh.
Yes. I mean,
Not serious.
I mean, again, the other thing besides those shout outs. So
Yeah.
shout out to all those guys.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And I'm very much in your realm of your years of
Yes.
maturity and growing, whatever.
Yes.
I actually moved to Chicago in '84, but
Yeah.
when I mentioned I mentioned them in interviewing you from the Rubi Girls. Everybody knew it.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
It's been a really interesting thing. We were very, I guess you would say cutting edge in the early 80s. And
Yeah.
then when HIV happened and we kind of saw our trajectory of being this comedic drag troupe and the rise of HIV, and we thought, there it is.
Right.
There's where we give our money. There's where we go. Those are the,
How could you not? Right.
it
It's
just
like-
worked out
Right.
in a weird, I don't know, I'm big on, the world's energy.
Yes.
In a weird way. We never anticipated that happening.
Sure.
So then we started going into bars, and we started going to these healing weekends at the state parks where people with HIV, were going to
Right.
to get support and to understand what they were going through.
Little escape.
And we were the entertainment.
Aw.
And so it just kind of snowballed,
Nice.
from there. And I think what's really cool about the Rubi thing is our whole thing was not about being female impersonators, not about, and that's great, but that's not what we were.
Sure.
We were really about doing drag to make these people laugh,
Right.
who were suffering in that early time, and in this, what's happening to me,
So
what's
much
under my
unknown.
life. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
We need to give them a moment of just relax and enjoy yourself, and it just exploded. So,
I will tell you, like when I was living in Chicago,
Yeah.
that was just a whole new world, obviously, to me at that time.
Yeah.
And I think that those 2 times were the most mysterious and scary unknowns.
Yes.
And the only thing that came next was COVID.
Yeah.
If you're, in terms of like, what?
What? Yeah.
What is
Right.
happening?
Yeah. It's interesting.
So it's obviously very much, kind of on the same scheme of things, if
Yeah.
you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's fantastic,
Yeah.
Josh. So it's very nice to have you.
Thank you.
So you mentioned you were born,
Mm-hmm.
and so where were you born again, and where you call home today?
I call home in the lovely city of Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, fantastic! Spearheading, and then like what was your parents? Did you have Did you have siblings? And then what was your? You mentioned your dad.
Yes.
And how about your mom? Because they
Yes.
sound like they were super influential.
They were, yes. So most of my friends who went through that coming out experience,
Yes.
mine was totally different. My father was in community theater. He was very much surrounded by this energy and this art form.
Sure.
My mother was a librarian, very learned, our whole home was filled with books.
Right.
So we would get books for Christmas. I mean, somebody shoot me, but we would get books for Christmas where other people were getting toys. You know what I mean?
Listen. I
Yeah.
mean, in terms of investing, like my father was a self-read man.
Yeah.
And I
Yes.
followed his footsteps
Sure.
and stacks of books.
Sure.
And when we talk about the community, like your father being
Mm-hmm.
in that, right? So I find this interesting
Yeah.
that on even a psychological human condition level, where, when you go to a show
Mm-hmm.
and you're like, you want to see your mythic hero, sing your song, act that play, be that character, tell that story.
Yeah.
It's all about stories. I'm heavily into mythology and
Okay.
Joseph Campbell and the
Okay, yeah.
universe, the mystery plane, the spiritual plane,
Existentialism
community.
kind of
Exactly.
feelings.
Sure.
Yes.
And if you look at that painting right behind you, I was actually raised Roman Catholic.
Okay.
And my father he was into Taoism, into Eastern philosophy.
Okay.
And so that was my creation. I call that enthuse.
Okay.
And so
All right, I get it.
the Greek word, well, you see where we got enthusiasm.
Yes.
But the actual Greek translation of enthuse
Mm-hmm.
is the God within.
Oh, okay. Oh, I can see that. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I'm getting back to your dad in community theater
Yes.
where you have these young people. And I wanted to be in theater. I needed to be in theater. I should have been.
Me too. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it got hop, skip, jump close, but it didn't happen.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm getting back to this point of the ability to be comfortable to be yourself and express openly in everything, every avenue of your emotion, your intellect, your heartfelt feelings, your raw emotions, bringing that and telling your story.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing today when we were on a tipping point for a long time.
Yes.
COVID tipped us over.
Yeah.
It's all spilled on the floor.
Yeah.
And now we're mopping it up.
Yes.
In terms of the
true.
you mean the reality?
Yes.
And I'm sure you've been donating to a lot of
We have.
physical care, mental care, the emotional, right? And to me, as an artist, I've always I consider myself, my essence, I'm an artist, and I'm a multimedia artist. You name a medium, I've been in it, or I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And I find it fascinating for creative expression.
Gotcha.
That being said, I've always felt two things.
Okay.
Like I was not quite right, not quite like fitting this kind of like standard, like get in line kid in the norm, and that confidence of like feeling kind of different, and to a point where you almost had to kind of like, suppress some of your true nature
Sure.
to be comfortable. And
Yeah.
then before you know it, when you're not looking, like, what happened to me? Where'd I go?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
that sounds
true.
like a wonder. And brothers and sisters?
I do. I have a sister and two brothers.
Okay.
Our whole family, what's interesting is with the whole coming out piece, my whole family, whatever, they were like, you have a purpose on this planet.
Oh,
My mother,
beautiful.
we used to talk about my mom was always big on, you're different, you're different, you're different.
Sure.
And her whole philosophy, which I had to like figure out what she was saying, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
But she was really saying, use your difference. Why are you, pushing it away? Use it. And
This is a superpower.
it is a superpower.
Go find your cape.
Exactly. So $3 million later in helping people, I'm like, Mom, I get what you were saying.
Is
Take
she
that.
still with us?
She's not.
Oh, God
My mom
bless.
passed away 2 years ago. And so
God
it
bless
was,
her.
The thing was, it was really difficult to lose my mom, but I realized something in the loss of both of my parents. And that was that what they did was prepare me to lose my parents, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. I can
Yes,
see you know what I
of
mean.
course.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
So I
they
get
just
it.
kind of like
Yes.
laid it off to you.
Yes,
Okay,
it's okay.
here's,
It's okay.
and it's such a blessing.
Yes, right. We gave you the strength to handle this.
When
Dude,
when I was a kid,
Yeah.
I remember coming of age and being sharp enough
Yeah.
to really actually hear my neighbors
Yes.
ingest
Yes.
conversation with my father, particularly. My mother is very conservative and kind of just straightforward.
Okay.
Work hard, save your money, don't get in trouble,
Okay.
stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
My dad was enjoy yourself,
Yeah.
and don't let the bastards get you down.
Yes. I love that. Yeah, it's great.
And I literally ingest my neighbors. I would hear them,
Yeah.
like almost in the back of their breath, ingest, like, "Oh, you're crazy."
Yeah.
To my dad.
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, what do you know?" But they would always be open for conversation. They would always be open for a chuckle. And what's that? He is comfortable being on stage.
Yeah.
And not just being himself. And he could own a room.
Yeah.
Not overpower it.
Yeah.
And I think that's a sweet essence of an art form.
It's a skill. Yes.
Right?
It
That
is.
I've never had kids,
Yeah.
but I believe strongly that the ideal role, and your parents said like they did this just
Yeah.
precision,
Yeah.
on point, and I'm sure they had an amazing upbringing to have them in that position where they were at to
I
supply
think
that,
so.
right?
I think so.
And that you see the glimmer at any time stages of your child's life. You try to nurture it.
Yes.
Try to say, "Oh, these are the things outside of our house, that the things of life that you have to, right? This is what you have to do
Exactly.
to maintain this home and to maintain that dynamic of your thought process," right?
Yes. Yes.
And again, that is like
It's a gift.
there's no price on that.
No, you're exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. It's
And
cool.
I grew up with a lot of dysfunction, a lot of craziness, and everybody. The idea of having a good time was drinking and fighting each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like,
Lord.
I'm out.
Yeah. Yes.
So so what schools did you tend to, like, what was the most profound, like, do you remember, like, whatever school was, elementary or junior high or college, any person that really caught you at different times of your life that really, like, meant something, that
Yes.
supported your efforts?
I do. When I was in high school, I was very fascinated with wanting to be a writer. I thought I had all these great stories to tell. And Mrs. Visha Ritter, who is still Visha, that's true first name. I bet
Okay.
she's out there listening.
Visha Ritter?
Visha
Shout
Ritter.
out to
Great
Visha
lady.
Ritter.
She was
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
She was my writing teacher. And
Just a little break here. Another great episode. I hope you are enjoying Imagine Fitting In podcast. And just a reminder here, please remember to hit the subscribe button, because we love to feel you a part of our Imagine Fitting In family. And if you want to become a brand ambassador, we'd love it if you would share this link on social media, through your email, all your friends. You can help with us with donations, any small donation, big or large, whatever you can manage, to help encourage us and support our efforts here. And you'll find that link in the show notes. And finally, again, a reminder, please refer guests to us. You can find me and contact me at thebalanceprofessor@gmail.com. Love to hear from you. All right? So I hope you continue enjoying Imagine Fitting In. All right? Till next time.
I would write these tales, these stories, these fictionalized, take my little bit and dramatize them.
Sure.
And finally, she sat me down one day and she goes, "Your real life is so much more interesting than what you're creating on this paper. And I love what you're attempting to do, but talk about you and talk about what's in your heart and talk about what's in your soul. Quit trying to," and it really stuck with me. And I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing that? Why am I making it bigger than it really is when it really is big enough?
Right.
And that was a lesson for me. And I remember I went to Wright
That
State.
right there is a powerful nugget.
It is.
And thank you.
It is.
Because this podcast is all about trying to create nuggets.
Yes.
And my main tagline is inspire young lives.
Yes.
I lost my nephew to addiction and mental health.
Sorry.
So there he is over there.
Oh gosh.
And I just want to be able to try to share and any age nuggets of like inspiration.
Yes.
And what you said to me, the writing thing, like
Yes.
my father was essence a writer. And I'm realizing I'm coming full circle, and that is actually my main form as well, and my vocal communication with you right here, with my interchange.
Yeah.
That's my medium right now. But it is just so, you writing those stories, and I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's powerful because you first sometimes have to deal with your surroundings, or like in that developmental journey of going down that path that's unknown, that dark path, your path.
Yeah.
And then, then I'm sure you had those stories were probably fascinating, and I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And then pointing out that yes, you can now take that story with you and walk with you, and then you are your own story, and that's going to be you're the leader of your many stories to come.
Right. Yes.
Fascinating.
It is. And when you finally own up to, I am interesting. I do have something to say.
Value,
it doesn't have to
value, self-worth.
I don't need to go through somebody else's voice. I should use my own. I mean,
yes.
It's hard because we're not brought up in a society where we are worthy of that. We're brought up in a society where none of us are really, we're all trying to figure out that worth. And so when you do, and when you kind of wake up and go, you know what?
Yes.
I'm going to tell my story. I'm not going to create someone outside of myself.
Yes.
When you really do that, you begin to get a path that seems more yours.
How old were you when that happened?
It really didn't. I mean, I was with her when I was 11th and 12th grade, but
Sure.
it really didn't hit me what she was saying. And honestly, I will say, I was in one of those relationships that was bumpy and ridiculous.
Yes.
And I would go and sit with my friends and talk about how amazing this friendship or this relationship was.
Yes.
It's incredible. It's the best thing in the world. And I would hear Mrs. Ritter's voice going, "You're doing it again. It isn't amazing. It isn't incredible. Tell the real story."
Wow.
And so when I did, I started connecting with people, and I thought,
Yeah.
this is how we connect. Because when you're really at your honest level, you can start to realize they're at their honest level, rather than always being like, "Oh, it's great. Where the world is wonderful." And it isn't. There's trials and tribulations, and that's how we connect.
And
it takes time to be strong enough to do that.
Right. And you get that message, and you have those lessons.
Yes.
You got that message early.
Yes.
And that road traveled, and that whole thing of like, boom, the bell goes off.
Yes.
And deep in your subconscious, as you're carrying it along, it's affected you.
Exactly.
And then certain things will spark
Yes.
the next forward, like relationship
true.
and whatever. And I think that besides like that conditioning of our culture in America, right? That whole thing of like the school structure. I think schools are structured almost not quite like, I don't say that actually socialism in terms of get in line with almost a militaristic kind of like, okay, we're strong. This is we are. Come in here, and a model that was created probably after World War II that has been carrying on and never been truly looked at and developed and defined the times in terms of like, you're proud American, of course.
Of course.
But
of course.
But then the individualism, like you're like,
Yes.
okay, this is what you do. Sit in line, stay in line. This is what you study. This, and then you're going to be rated on a number from some supposedly whatever knowledge that we tell you should know. And if you don't know that, then that's going to that just pulls the rug out from how many people.
Yeah.
What does that do to help confidence?
Nothing.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
It's just, I think it's actually destructive.
It is destructive.
And I said
in many
this,
ways, yes.
I said this before in my podcast, like on a physical plane, because I'm in fitness, and the physical plane saved my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just on that, but on the psychological and mental, right, intellectual, and we talk about emotional, how much does that intellectual strategy that goes down, that hasn't been revisited and formulated for like the effects. I mean, how often do you say like, hear teachers spending their own money for pencils and stuff, right? I mean, it is the most obscene, disgraceful, in the most modern powerful country in the world.
Right.
So what is that?
Yeah.
Is that a little bit of control?
It's control, it's power.
Yeah.
It's all those things.
And so
Sure.
it's interesting that I always said way back, we are the entertainment military and entertainment capital of the world, in that people have the freedom to come here and fight, right? To help support the freedom, be respectful of what it took. It's not perfect, but it's the best thing going. And then the ability to express themselves openly and freely. And if your star hits just right, and you put out the spotlight, then all things, all judgments go off the wayside.
Correct. Yeah.
And then we hear stories about like the true development of when we find like successful celebrities or musicians or authors or people in the know.
Yeah.
Right. And so now I find it very interesting because between like the structure breaking down, like our podcast, right? We're able to have these sincere conversations and reach out and cut through like your 27 years of service.
Yeah.
That is so honorable, dude. That's so honorable.
Thank you.
I consider myself a teacher too.
Yeah.
And we're constantly learning.
Oh, that's what the whole point of being a teacher is to learn. Yes.
So I think again, those are some fantastic nuggets.
Thank you.
So let me ask you. So in your teens, in your 20s, where do you put your focus to? Where were you at? Because in the teens or 20s, they really can be confusing and whatever. So where were you?
Well, I would say in my 20s especially, I was in probably one of the most critical turning points in my life. I was in a pretty serious relationship. It did not end well. It was one of those people that decided, everybody should be part of our relationship, if you know what I mean. I was very much the monogamous one. Sure. He was not.
Yes.
And
there was a little yin and yang there.
There was.
Right.
And he went into the military, went to do his own thing. I stayed back here in Dayton, and then he ended up developing HIV. So that was, for me, the 20s became this, oh my God, life is like, I don't even know how to explain it, but there was an urgency to life. It was like, oh my God, we got to do it. Because who knows?
Right.
Watching all these people I know become ill and die. And especially when he left this planet. But it really became a time in my life where I was like, I'm not taking any of this for granted. No way. Absolutely not.
Wow. And you were in your 20s?
Yeah, I was in my late 20s. Prior to that, I was still bumping around trying to figure out, am I gay? Am I bi?
Yes.
What am I?
Yeah.
Sexuality became this big, it was so much bigger than it needed to be.
Okay.
But it was such a huge bubble that needed to be burst. You know what I mean?
Because it's such a huge part of our self-discovery.
Especially in our society. Oh God, we're so sexualized.
And I tell people all the time that, I was raised Roman Catholic and everybody should have a foundation.
For sure. Something.
But I stepped out and I decided like I'm going to leave behind all the puritanical bullshit of feeling judged in every motion and move and feeling I had. And like, and I decided that way, but probably back in my late 20s around the same time. Yeah. And it delved me into mythology and I wanted to know what the world was like in human existence before the Big Five.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm completely with you on that, and it's like that side
woke me up.
It just now in terms of when we have the LGBTQ and all the strife and the work for equal rights and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like I don't know why that the society, if it's like powers that be, that the more chaos, then the less time we have to talk and discuss about solutions.
Right.
And that when we have somebody come along every so often, and I'm not going to judge anybody for character, all that. Anybody from Jimmy Carter to Bill Clinton to Obama, like those are the only presidents that I actually could listen to, and I sound like they were actually talking to me.
Right.
Everything else was. Pat yourself on the back, pat your, whatever. Go back, get in line in school. Yep. And so we see where we are now.
Yeah.
And I think this is an example of what I talk about when you talk about we have to get out of the idea and give kids the idea that they've been conditioned to think that they're kind of like, when you don't really identify who you are or you're not confident and have the material structure, education, books, knowledge, mentors to show you like you are something.
Right.
You have something to contribute.
Yeah.
You can be a participant.
Yeah.
You don't have to be just an observer. And our culture is so strong and like observer, and they can distract you. Well, it's like say you're at the bottom of the circle. You're outside the circle and you're at the bottom.
Yep.
That's where we like the teens and all these things. Your career, right? Where you want to go? What's life about? And then you're like climbing.
Yep.
And at a point in time, you get like, you say, oh, a successful relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm at the top. Oh my God, this feels great.
Amazing. Yeah.
Right?
And then boom.
And then all of a sudden, right?
Boom.
You're like, okay, the challenges, realities, whatever. And it's like the idea is not to be outside the circle.
Right.
It's like, can we try to educate and understand like all these resources, like all these great funds that you're raising for all these circumstances and people that have been suffering. Like we want them to like if the schools. I'm being really philosophical and like spitballing here because it's my nature. That like trying to show that you're in the center and be in the center of you. And then that circle's going to spin.
It'll spin.
You don't have to be constantly feeling like you're a failure or this idea of peak success.
Yeah.
Because what's that do? It's just erratic and like depression and anxiety of what you have.
Yeah.
And like you said,
Yeah.
being grateful.
Yeah, just be grateful.
Absolutely. So did you have any other like life-changing experiences along the way, like between that time and where you're sitting here now and talking to
I'm
sharing?
sure I did.
Yeah.
That was just really, that really was
profound.
something that was profound. It was profound when he died. That was even more profound.
Okay.
I kind of woke up and I thought, oh my God, we got together one last time to talk before all that happened. And I just looked at life differently. I thought, you know what? We don't understand that the decisions we make are profound. You make these choices and then you wake up and you're like, holy shit, why did I make that choice? But guess what? That's the choice you made. So it's profound. It is. You know what I mean?
Like at the time.
Yes, that was it.
Emotionally, and if it's one thing that I've learned in my, I'm 62 now.
Me too.
Yeah.
62.
Yeah. In that
Yep.
I am so much more. I'm like the most optimistic, most adventurous, most risk-taking guy you want to meet.
That's awesome.
And it's taken me to 34 states, 34 countries. I've
Yeah.
lived in 3 major cities. I've participated in all kinds of things that are not even the top 3 things I do right now, or the 4 things I do right now. I still have more than that I've done. And it's like all those experiences shape me,
Of course.
form me to get me here.
Yes.
And now I realize at this age, ripe age of 62, is to be a little bit more methodical, but do not lose any of those qualities that I have had forever.
Exactly.
And then now I'm like being a little bit more practical and decisive. So then that whole time when you come up like, oh, you won't have as many extremes like, oh, why did I do that?
Right.
You
It's
know what I mean?
true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So how do you use your difference to make a difference for others?
Well, I think the most important thing that we can do is realize that all of us are different. That's the whole problem. We're in especially right now, we're in a society where sameness somehow has a power, and I don't get it. I don't want to be the same. I just don't. I teach at Wright State now, and in that teaching at Wright State, that's the one thing I want my students to walk out with. Figure out who
what's
you
your
are.
field of study?
Well, I teach civics.
Okay. Oh.
Same as my father. Mostly Democratic.
Rock on to your father, dude. Rock on.
Mostly Democratic studies.
Sure.
Learning about the whole idea of what the public schools stand for, which, they're threatened every day.
Yes.
But really what I try to get my students to do is to realize you are surrounded by people who are saying, walk in this straight line. That's where you're supposed to be. And I'm telling them, do not walk in that straight line. Get outside of that, because if all these people are walking in this straight line, somebody's got to go outside over here to be the one that's going to make the next straight line, that's going to make the next straight line. And
right.
so on and so forth. And
Cutting paths.
Cutting paths.
Unique paths.
That's it.
To channel off the cattle call.
Exactly.
And the confusion
Exactly.
and
Yeah. And I going back to your talking about 1984 and myself.
Yes.
I told the kids, the Orwell book, 1984, which was such an influential book.
Yes.
I believe, even though it, didn't come true the way he had written the book.
Yeah.
I think 1984 was a changing year. I think people woke up and like, what just happened? And I really think a lot happened in that era, the early 80s. There was
Oh my
something about
gosh.
the music. There was something about the push. There was something about the be unique and odd and unusual. And it got shut down. It really did get shut down. And I feel like it's kind of bubbled up a few times.
Right.
And every time it bubbles up, it gets shut down. I think our American society is so afraid. We're so afraid of individuals. We're scared.
Right.
We're afraid that those individuals, if they're enjoying themselves, if there's joy in the world, if there's adventure, if there's, I've got this spirit.
And if you're somewhat of a radical independent with
I
thoughts
gotta
and statements.
shut you down.
Exactly.
And I always say, well, look what they did to Jesus. Whether you believe or not believe,
I was just going
a
to say the
radical
same.
who shut, they
Right,
shut
right.
down. Exactly.
You know, they all, right? They're all these radical thoughts and that, yeah, from
It's
the beginning
weird
of time.
to me. It's weird to me.
Yeah. And
What
so-
are you so afraid of? You know, it's just weird.
Right. And you know that, you know, taking the unknown dark path. And I believe I did that through my own, I had a relationship in Chicago and I almost got married and I ended up didn't. I was with a person from 87 to 92.
Yeah.
And we both, you know, just soon after realized like I went through and proposed we were going to do it, and I realized to myself, and I was aware enough. So thank goodness, thank goodness, right?
I love it.
That I could fool everybody but myself.
That's it.
And I finally said, you know, I can't do this. I love you, but I can't do this right now.
Yes.
I won't be what we need for us. So that was one of the most growth portions of my life. And headed out to Sedona, Arizona, discovered a book on writings about an author who actually wrote about explaining Joseph Campbell's work. And then when I did a deep dive there, it changed my life forever.
Exactly.
And those, you know, those paths are.
And it kind of goes back to that whole thing. I mean, it's like, it is a whole thing about, you know, quit lying to yourself. Quit. That's the
Right.
whole thing.
Be honest,
Be
open,
honest
and
and be
right?
open
Don't
and-
suppress.
And there's things you love in your life that you tell people you don't love because it makes you safer. Tell them that you love it. It's okay. You know, it's
Right,
okay to love
right.
that. So it's hard. And your eyes kind of go, oh my gosh. Although I don't share this with you guys, this is something I love because I'm afraid I'm going to be judged. It's okay to be judged. You'll be fine.
So as an artist, I was first a visual artist, and I'm a very graphic artist.
Oh,
so,
I can, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
So my stuff, like when I do my show,
Yeah.
the first thing people are going to probably tend to do, walk in, they go, how many artists are here?
Yeah.
Because they're going to see a variety of work, and I can't explain that.
Yes.
But that being said, I think the phenomenon of social media and technology, it's really kind of interesting because back in the day, it was a paintbrush and art pencil. Oh, I can't paint. I can't express myself. Oh, I can't write anything, right? I can't do anything of value, right? Of like somebody would want to read. But this micro empowerment of not only being able a person to just write down their thoughts,
Yeah.
evil, mean, kind, inspirational, whatever, right? Allows this open free flow that we have, God bless our veterans.
Yeah.
All the people who sacrificed
Sure.
for us to do this and have this kind of conversation to analyze like where we really are.
Yeah.
In that I find it fascinating that everybody thinks now, and it's true because you're able to make a splash for that Andy Warhol 15 minutes of fame. And some long less than others.
Yeah.
But usually when it gets the more twisted it gets, the more bizarre it gets. And these days, because there's so much volume,
Right.
you can't even, right? You
Right.
can't even keep up with it.
That's true.
So with all this technology, everybody's become literally potential another avenue to express themselves. And again, the ones that never will like make that chance, and there's tons of right
Oh, God, yeah.
that are able to stay and do things
Yeah.
that they don't want to actually walk the true walk.
That's right.
And then it's such bullshit because we wonder now we give these people tools that you're like, oh, here, you can do 50% of the work you need to do, but then the other 50%, sorry.
Right.
You're going to be judged and shut down again, even harder.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, now it's magnified.
Right.
So I think that's societal pressures.
Yes.
I think that, how children are, getting so preoccupied because there's just so much coming at us. When you have a commercial and a dialogue and graphics come at you at the gas pump, I'm like, come on. There's no time for imagination.
I know. You can't
Whatsoever.
just chill. I know. Hear
And
ya.
imagination, I think, is the most powerful thing
is.
on the planet.
It is.
Now, when you first created the Rubi Girls,
Yes.
what was the biggest obstacle or hurdle you faced?
Well, I mean, it was probably the fact that people didn't understand drag.
Uh-huh.
They thought drag, we all wanted to be women. We all wanted to be transgendered. It's
Sure.
like, no, you're not getting it.
Theater,
It's
to a
it's
degree.
theater.
Yeah.
No, it is. It is theater for
Right,
sure.
right.
And there's an empowerment when you put on,
A mask.
on a mask. You
Yeah.
can do what you would not do as your normal self. So I think that was probably the biggest obstacle, just educating people.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. We're just here to do a show.
Right?
Yeah.
Have fun and
Have fun.
You know, who doesn't love, I mean, it's all the arts, right?
Yes,
It takes
for
a
sure.
writer to write a song. It takes a
does.
writer to write a play, to create an experience, and that is all about those stories.
Yep, exactly.
What do you think, why is being unusual and thinking outside the box essential in like today's climate?
Well, I think we are, I guess more than anything, the whole idea of thinking outside the box, what we're doing is we're finding the box more and more uncomfortable. I mean, I think with Trump winning again, I think we've got people that are like, oh, this was necessary to save money and this was necessary to bring down the price of eggs.
Yes.
Whatever it is. So we're all in this same box together. And then we wake up the next morning, we're like, it's just not comfortable in this box. And you're seeing it now. People are like, what have we done? How do we jump back into this box? So I think thinking outside the box really is freedom.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
Right.
It's just another word for freeing ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's essential for people to realize it may seem like this is the answer, but you're going to find it's not the answer. You got to get outside of there to look at what life is really about.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, so much, I find it interesting that, you know, he's one of the presidents besides Jimmy Carter that never fired a shot.
Yeah.
But he is the psychology of the shots and the actions that are just like they're gun blasts, they're constant gun blasts.
Oh.
And they want to shock you. And if you're a soldier in the field and you are just, the shelling never stops, and you cannot understand like where exactly it's coming from. You don't have time to actually treat whatever wounds might have occurred from these blasts.
Yeah.
And you're just in a state that, so you're waiting for that, like a next announcement to come over, say, yeah, this is the true reality, and yeah, you'll be fine. But blast, 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 and that kind of, it's a manipulation.
Yeah.
And to, like you said, I mean, hey, listen, God bless America. Change is good.
It is good.
There's a degree of what I truly believe. It was time to shake up a bigger tree than just this guy who was able to approach the tree, shake it himself, get enough fruit to be attractive to share with others and energy to take us to a point of looking at the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that shakes down the education system,
Let's hope.
our healthcare system,
Yep.
and let's hope and pray that the democracy holds itself together in terms of potential any kind of constitutional
Scary.
crisis.
Yeah.
Right? And that we can only hope and believe, and we know that, hey, we're Americans.
Yeah.
And that we're stronger together, but with more potential ideological ideas, events, and contributions that are positive for many, as opposed just for a few, or just that self person.
Got it.
Is right.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
true.
let's see some blast of
Yeah.
Great community contributions like you've been doing since
Trying,
oh my God,
yes,
right?
yes.
And it's like that's what I do with my art.
Yeah.
I always say, the Buddha has this saying, and it says, "Life is sorrowful." And somebody goes, "Oh, how can you believe that?" No, life is not sorrowful. I'm like, well, I don't know about you, but the challenges of the day, it can be pretty challenging and sorrowful. The idea is to try to find the beauty between all the sorrow. And then I always say to myself and to others that through my art and my experience and my exchanges with people, and to keep alive the hope of, let's try to create a little joy. If we can't find it, can we create some?
Yes.
And spread that.
Bingo. Yeah.
And have it be as contagious as whatever COVID was or whatever that, right? To spread to society.
Yeah.
And ultimately, like you mentioned, like,
Yeah.
we're on that same box.
That's it.
So it's interesting. I'm rattling off about the public education system. Like what was it like back when you first started? Has there been any major changes, positive things, negative, like when you first started way back in almost 30 years ago?
There's been a lot of changes, actually. I think educators are really facing an uphill battle now. I mean, I guess there's a sense of a lot of people coming at it. We've got private schools, we've got vouchers, we've got Procule, we've got all these things really pulling away from the public school system and the funding, what Trump would like to do and funding people that leave the public schools. Here's the problem. Who's going to suffer the most? The kid that's already suffering the most. So what does that do to these kids? And that's scary. I look at what's going on in the Dayton public schools, and these kids need every hand they can get pulling them up. And that worries me. So that's probably the biggest thing that's changed. And I also think that, teachers feel demoralized more than when I first started.
Really?
I think COVID really, there were people that were like, teachers are amazing. They're amazing. Look what they're doing for our kids during this COVID crisis. And the minute the crisis was over, it's like, these teachers, what are they? It's very, very difficult to be a teacher in our society. When I was a kid, if you got in trouble, you got home and you were in trouble. Now, if you get in trouble, parents are like, it's the teacher's fault that the kid's in trouble. That is a shift. That's a huge shift in our society.
Let's investigate.
Yes.
Was this who caused this?
Huge shift in our society. It really is. So it's big.
That's interesting.
It is. Nobody wants to take responsibility for what their kids are doing. And that's new. That wasn't the way it was before. I also think social media is really troublesome for public schools.
Is that like a handoff? Like the parents have been so conditioned to it's not my responsibility. Like a handoff because you're spending all this time with my son or daughter.
Yeah.
And you should be able to correct what I've given you.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't. It's very, very strange. Let's
climb that tree.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Oh my goodness.
It's hard.
Wow.
It's hard. Yeah.
So listen, where can people get more information on a few things, right? Where they can experience the Rubi Girls.
Oh yeah, of course.
Do you and others in the Rubi Girls have other projects that your philanthropic efforts and stuff? Tell us a little bit about some of your efforts because it's fascinating.
Well, probably the most important thing is to go to therubigirls.com. Therubigirls.com. It's all on there. Everything we do.
An I.
Yeah, with an I. It's all on there. Everything that we do, you can apply for grants through the Rubi Girls. You can apply for scholarships. We started the scholarship program about 5 years ago. We've put 15 LGBTQ plus kids into colleges with our scholarships. So it's huge. I mean, it's really a lot bigger than, just doing shows, which people I think know.
Yes.
I'm very involved with Arts Gala at Wright State University. All of the Rubi Girls, when you go on the website, you can click and learn about all 10 of us. Mm-hmm. All of us have our passions and things that we really, stand up for and work on. What I think is really unique about the Rubi Girls is it's individual as well as group.
Collaborative.
So collaborative. So you're going to see things that are more driven by, Jonathan McNeil, who runs the Neon Movies downtown. He'll give you every little bit of information about how the Neon sends kids to school through their own scholarship. You're going to see Brent Johnson, who does a lot of work through the Square One Salon scholarships. So everybody's got their thing.
Yes.
And then we come together and do those same things through the Rubi Girls. It's a very philanthropic and very progressive organization that looks at what we can do to help our society. So
that's got to be so fulfilling.
It's so fulfilling,
so sustaining,
it is.
And you when you showed up, you're like, it's a great day. I always feel great.
I do. And I'm a positive, optimistic guy.
And all these words up there, if you see like that purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
purpose-driven
the adventure,
life.
Right? Wellness, knowledge, community, and
it's all there.
That experience of just
walk the streets and. This is what I tell people, walk the streets and just act as if you're carrying a sign that say that I give a shit, because people will feel it. They'll know it. They will know there's an energy to you that matters. So
Right.
it's important.
Everybody's trying to make that kind of same statement,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like somebody wearing a different dress or a different hair color
True.
or, carrying, gun. Whatever extreme that makes you feel like it stands you out, makes you an individual
This
and separate.
is my stance. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes.
it's like,
Yes. Yeah.
wow. It's just so community oriented.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you guys are just like fueling the fire in so many opportunities. I
Yeah.
know for sure,
Yeah.
and it's been amazing
Yeah.
that, Josh, ever since I started this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
The Imagine Fitting In,
Mm-hmm.
I'm an exercise specialist. I deal with a lot of pain management now these days,
Yeah.
especially for us.
Older guys.
Yeah. And, the arts is where the Imagine comes in. The fit, I had to put the word fit in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Because in terms of healthy lives, that's where my big essence is there with my professional career.
Mm-hmm.
But simultaneously, I've been an artist ever since I could tall enough to step up on a pool
Sure.
to a table and write a story
Mm-hmm.
and start painting and all that, easels and stuff like that. So the vehicle. So I believe that it's a great awareness for people to know that there's many mediums and tools and out there in terms of with technology. It's just ridiculous on how much you can learn.
Oh God.
If you have
For
that, that drive, that ambition.
Yep. Yep.
So you're so busy. How do you do things well and not just what's necessary to get by? Because you sound loaded. So you teach at Wright State. You're involved with the Rubi Girls. You actually are you're at the salon.
Yep.
And so how do you do it, man?
Well, basically, I think the thing you have to do is prioritize what you're doing. When it comes to the Rubi Girls shows, that takes up a window of time, but it has a beginning and an end.
You've
Each
learned you've learned how much window
That's right,
and whatever
that's right.
it's necessary.
When it comes to square one, there's plenty of people that can. We got good management in place, good people doing their thing. They can handle that. It took time. Again, you have to build that foundation behind you, so
the people,
so the walls can stand.
community. Yeah.
So it's kind of like that. I would say probably with Wright State University, that's, teaching has always been my passion.
Awesome.
So to me, it's never, ever been a job to be a teacher. Never. It's always been, I walk in there and I'm like, let's do this.
Same here.
Yeah.
I'm basically a teacher.
Yeah, that's what you are.
Yeah.
So, being an educator, it just comes naturally to me. I would say the hardest part of any of this life is relationships. That's really harder than any job we have because they're delicate and they need our attention.
Yes.
And they need our love and they need those kinds of things. And I think where we're lopsided in this world is we really do spend so much time on the other parts of it all when really we should be spending time on our relationships. So
Yeah.
it'll come back around. The circle, like you were saying about the circle, it comes back around.
And it's interesting because you say that because, all right, so can we, developing a relationship, sustaining a relationship, growing with a
Connecting.
relationship, connecting.
Yep.
It's like, like you said, like all those things in life, purpose, and individual. And then it's almost like a 50-50, right? Like you have to need enough to have that open, boom, flop over.
Yep.
And you're just completely available.
Yep.
For that person to be able to do the same thing.
Yep.
So thank you for that nugget because I'm going to use this now forever.
It's true. It's really true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And that circle, boom, boom. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's it.
and
Really? That's
Right?
really what it comes down to.
if you think about it, because we get so caught up in different segments from
Yes,
our
right.
our titles and our income, which obviously those are like on a psychological or okay, what is my title? What am I doing?
Yeah.
In terms of society looking at me, and then your income, and then your sustainability and your vulnerability. Of all those essential things.
Yeah.
And then we have that whole dynamic of emotional development and then trying to share your emotional development
Yep.
and be honest and true to yourself.
Yep.
So cutting it dry right down the line. I like that. Boom.
Right.
Chop
is.
it.
That's it.
And thank God, right?
Yes.
Wisdom comes with age.
It does. It really does.
Right?
Yes, it does.
So has the Rubi Girl sustained its presence today from a set number of individuals from the start? Or is that grown?
It's grown.
Okay.
And then it's come and gone.
Yes.
We've had as many as 14 and as few as 4. So it just kind of, yeah.
And so what do you think the key is to monitoring that? Are you like the main,
Well, there's
kind of
two
the main
of us
guy,
that-
or two of you?
Two of us that have been in this since the very beginning.
Got it.
Everybody else is kind of come and gone.
Yeah.
But the two of us really look at it as the mission, not the drag, but the mission.
Yes.
And the mission is, to raise money and to help different organizations and make people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And that's our mission. So as long as you keep your eye on the mission, everything else falls in line. pretty
Right,
much. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And I'll get back to what I got off track, but mentioning that ever since I've been doing this podcast, and it's purposeful, and I want to create these nuggets for
Yes.
young and old,
Yes.
and inspire people, and with this long dialogue, that I find it truly so beautiful and inspirational for me, as much as I'm trying to propel and create a vehicle for people to share their story, and me to be a part of, like, that blast, what I just tried before, that blast of like, here's something, like, you should know that. And if there's those nuggets that come out there and sprinkle out, and hopefully that will grow organically,
Right.
like in a garden.
Yes.
So I find it very rewarding,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's
It is.
excellent.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, in terms of, like, as being a teacher,
Yeah.
how do you kind of nurture people when you teach civics?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you have you come to understand a little bit of, like, is it just to completely read each individual? Do you have a common kind of energy statement that you try to give your class in general overall, and then you kind of maybe react accordingly to how those individuals kind of come at you, like asking for advice and all that kind of stuff?
I would say that, the whole basis of civics is voice. That's really what it is. Who are we? Stand up for what you believe in, tell your story. So it really is about giving them a safe space. And our theme, it's up on our wall at Wright State. And it's in very big letters, you belong here. That, to me, is the whole thing about civics.
Powerful.
Yeah, it is. It's very powerful. Being civilized and knowing that. I have a student this year who just happens to be an Arab, who is very, timid. And I keep pulling at this, come on.
Yeah.
She's getting there, and she's learning to say, I'm okay here. I'm like, you are okay here. And that, to me, is what civics is.
A safe place.
A safe place.
Yeah.
Safe place to just be aware of who you are and know that no one's going to look at that and say it's wrong. It's
Right.
really about, hey, you're not the same as me. And guess what? We still belong here. So it's connection, relationships.
Right.
I think the whole thing of this whole life that we lead is relationships. That's really what it comes down to.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It
right?
is. Right.
And when you mention, like, when you have if it's a personal, intimate relationship and life partner and stuff,
Yes.
that I always say, like, with clients, what did I say? Okay, so with clients, like when you business clients,
Yeah,
it's in the details.
for sure.
And then with relationships, it's the little things. Those micro feelings and emotions and statements,
Sure.
and being very aware of the day, of your partners, what potential to, knowing their true potential.
Yeah.
And then recognizing that we all have, right, days or moments or times that we have challenges of trying to keep our base level.
Yeah.
And to realize, like, okay, that person's still there.
Right.
Even though, like, oh, this is coming from them and this is how they're responding.
Yeah.
And not to judge, it's like, what's the last thing you want to do is judge somebody.
Oh, God, I know. It's,
Right?
What a waste of time.
Exactly. And it's just,
It is.
doesn't have any, complimentary necessarily outlook.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
So let me ask you, in terms of, your managing all that stuff, what is, in terms of the fitness part, wellness, wellness and being healthy. What does self-care look like for you? How do you achieve a work-life balance and, like, that, that physical plane, that, that continuing you to nurture your relationship, your own personal growth in terms of knowledge? Because obviously, I'm sure you still read a lot.
I do.
Yeah. So what's that look like for you today?
Well, I would say that, and I would recommend this to everybody. If you have the availability, I recommend everybody get in the pool. Swimming, to me, is all of it.
Another
Yes.
fist
Yes.
bump.
Yeah. It's everything.
Yeah,
Truly is.
I'm in 3 times a week or
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same. So I go to UD's gym and
Nice.
swim, and I think there's a solitude. There is a moment of, there's a lot of thought that goes on in swimming.
Yes.
And it's taking care of your physical body as well as your emotional. So that's one thing I would say. But the other thing in work-life balance, I think you have to, this is hard, but you have to stop yourself somewhere along every day, even if it's for 15 minutes, and just say, it's got to be peaceful for a minute. I got to just shut down for a few minutes.
Right.
And, it's funny.
Be present with your own breath and just okay, don't think about anything.
Yes. I find it in water. We have a tub in our house. Most people are like, ew, I don't want to get in a bathtub. I love to get in a bathtub.
Gosh.
I love it.
Right.
It is to me, even if it's a 20-minute dip, it's just this time to just shh.
Right.
Got to calm down.
I can't, I would die without water.
I agree. Water is essential.
Music.
Music.
In all forms of creative, mediums of creative expression. Yes.
All of it.
Right? The food, the palette of life.
All of it.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I just recently started cooking.
Yeah.
And it's so funny.
Yeah.
Because like my younger brother was like, oh yeah, so what'd you make? And I just listed all the things.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't know. I just went and grabbed like all the colors off the shelf.
Yes.
That I think that like the things that'd be like great combo to put together.
Yes.
And every one of my dishes has been fantastic.
Yeah. And
I've been like, I don't know, obsessed now. It's that's the
is.
analogy of
I love it.
of
Love it.
of like self-care,
Right.
all those pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. True.
So listen, I want to thank you for your time.
It's been fun. I've loved it,
dude.
Good.
I delve into like trying to get the background and
Yes.
and relate to if a young person can hear those early days
Yes.
in the midlife and the relationship. So it's awesome. Is there anything else you would like to share today at all with listeners?
I would say my parting shots or whatever.
Yes.
I would say.
I love it.
I would say probably if there are young people out there living, I think the most important thing you can do is not be afraid of whatever it is that you love. Just, it's okay. It doesn't matter if, and I feel like we shame ourselves for what we enjoy and what we love.
Yeah.
That's what our society has placed on us. Find it, do it, enjoy it, and live it out for the rest of your life. And it will be the biggest reward. It really will.
Dude,
so, thank you.
That's fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And you kind of your opening shot was the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
full circle.
Full circle. All right.
It's true.
Shout out to Full Circle.
Yes.
Gentlemen, I just had a guest on. That's just a shout because that's a great
Yes.
title. Yeah. So anyway, thank you so much for your time.
Loved it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Everybody be sure to check out the Rubi Girls with an I.com.
Yes.
Do it. Find out where they're performing,
Yes.
how you can get involved. And if you need some support, they are making a difference in Dayton.
We're doing it.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, everybody. All right, kids. I would say it's kids. Oh, I'm not a kid. Are we kids?
We're all kids.
Kids at heart, right? All right, kids. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Professor.